Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm David Eckoff, and welcome. Welcome to our session. We're titled this From Customer Discovery to Truth Discovery. And this is how to discover if customers will buy and use your product before you build your product. And I'm so happy to be here. I believe everyone who's attending this today, that you have superpowers. And my job today is to help you discover and rediscover them so you can begin to learn the truth about your customers rather than the story that you're telling yourselves and telling to others. So here's just a summary. And I'd like to thank our sponsors. They've asked me to say this. Thank you to the ProductCamp sponsors who have made today possible. Here's our purpose today. I'm just a summary. The most businesses and products are not commercially successful. Today, we're going to learn how to build products that people buy and use. And first, we're going to learn how to reduce product risk and the most important risk to focus on first. We're going to discover a powerful approach to testing that will get you moving so fast. You're going to like this. And you're going to use it, hopefully. Then 3, we're going to know the 3 biggest tactical mistakes that people make in this process of customer discovery, what I'm calling truth discovery, finding out the truth about your customers. I've got a couple of suggestions as you go through today. If you have a notebook, hey, here's my ProductCamp Atlanta notebook that I carry around with me and take notes. If you have a notebook and a pen, take old-fashioned notes. It's proven, I've done this session, I don't know how many hundreds of times now, it's proven to me that people who take notes about the things they find interesting and useful get like 1,000 times more out of this. You could do it on your phone or your iPad or whatever, but I recommend old-fashioned notes. If you have any questions as we go, we'll have opportunity for Q&A at the end. It's going to be participatory. My goal for this is not just about a lean-back experience where you're being entertained. I hope hopefully you're a little entertained so that you learn, but so that you can learn, know, and remember, and then go do and get some different results, hopefully. So, and then 4th, we're going to learn some simple but non-obvious hacks, some shortcuts to success, and you're going to like them. They'll help get you going. So who am I? I'm David Eckoff, and why am I qualified to talk on this topic? Gosh, I've been doing this for a long time. In companies ranging from big companies like IBM, Fortune 500 companies like Turner Broadcasting, where I was vice president for new products and innovation. I'm a 3-time entrepreneur, doing my own startup, Spitter.com, Pickoff Sports. I've done this at startups, including Rivals.com, which was later bought by Yahoo. I've advised a number of startups, including Ustream TV, acquired by IBM, Kleiner Perkins funded Zazzle, and I'm a 3-time entrepreneur also. So entrepreneur, someone who does this in large companies. I've taught this material at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, full semester course, and also in Chile. And most recently, I was the entrepreneur in residence at Comcast NBC Universal, a startup accelerator called The Farm, and where I taught this same thing I'm about to show you to hundreds of startup founders. And most recently, I'm at a company, I'm really happy about this. I'm at a company called EmployBridge. My title is Entrepreneur in Residence and General Manager. I'm a entrepreneur, but in a big company. And I just mentioned, we have a whole bunch of jobs we're hiring for. I've done a lot in my career, and I think this is my best yet. This is my favorite stop along the way so far at EmployBridge. If you're a great product manager, I want you to get in touch with me afterwards. I'll share my LinkedIn. We've got some cool positions, including some of the things that I do, is like being an entrepreneur at a big company and some classic product management positions. Great company. But enough about me. Let's get straight to the material. And, if you look at the numbers, the numbers are stacked against you if you're doing anything new, whether it's start a new business, develop a new product. Just new businesses. You've probably heard this. 50% of businesses started today, they're not going to last beyond 2 years even. And 80% of businesses started today, not going to last beyond even 5 years. And the numbers say you won't succeed. You'd have to be crazy to want to do something new. And your chances of getting from initial idea I would think about this. Your chances of getting from initial idea to sustainably adding value is dismal. It's dismal, clearly less than 1 in 100, and probably more like 1 in 1,000. The failure is the norm. So why do you think that is? I think you think about that for a moment. And I'll mention the people who go through these sessions with me, and this is just the first of 3 sessions. This is the foundation. If you go through this session and you actually engage your mind and think about how this applies to you, you will get exponentially more out of this versus like just sit back and certainly if compared to multitasking, engage in this. So why do you think? Why is this? Why do most businesses and most new products fail? Do you think it's because the entrepreneur or product manager has lack of passion? I don't think so. Do you think that they're failing because they're not that bright? I don't think so. I'd say the smartest, most experienced and capable people. This is what happens. So why do you think this is? Here's my conclusion. Jot down a few ideas right now, and actually in the chat right now, go ahead and just put down whatever comes to mind. I'm going to read a few of them. Why do most businesses and new products fail? Here's Jerry. Jerry says people love their idea and ignore the data. Let's see. Greg says not solving a real problem. iPhone says not solving a problem. Wow, they're coming fast. So fast I can't even read. They make assumptions that are not true and get into groupthink with cheerleader type colleagues. I've seen this all. Another one, poor product market fit. Bo says scaling too fast. These are coming in so fast, I can't even keep up with these. So thank you. Here's the thing. There are an infinite number of reasons. The paths to failure are infinite. And but we can't cover all those right now, and it wouldn't even make sense to do that. So my conclusion, you begin to see patterns when you've done this for a long time. My conclusion is that most businesses and new products are not commercially successful because we build products that people don't want to buy and use. Think about that for a second. No one here in this session would set out to build a product that people don't want to buy and use. No one sets out to do that. But every day, smart, experienced, capable people build products that people don't buy and use. And I've done that. I think we've all done that, or we have a friend who's done that. So, if you've done that, you know what I'm talking about. And here's why I think. And I've observed this. I've observed this pattern in me and pretty much everyone else who I've worked with on this. We're now totaling in the thousands. We follow a flawed 3-step process. And I want to emphasize, this is what I'm about to show you is the flawed 3-step process. This is the one don't do. There's always like one person who comes back and said, David, I followed your process and it failed terribly. What did you follow? And they follow this process. Don't do this one. Well, step 1 is we get an idea. Get ideas every day. We get an idea. And we haven't really gone too far off track at this point. Although we're off track and we don't even know it. And that's a problem because we don't know it. But step 1, we get an idea. Step 2, we convince ourselves the idea is a good one. And this is where we get really off track because we don't even know that we're doing it. We're doing this without even realizing it. We're convincing ourselves the idea is a good one. Maybe it's at a whiteboard, developing a really sophisticated, intellectually interesting model like this person's doing. I did this at a company in Seattle for about 3 months on a new product. We developed some incredibly interesting ideas that convinced ourselves, models that we convinced ourselves the idea is a good one. That's not a good idea. How else do we convince ourselves the idea is a good one? Well, we take a look at the numbers, and the numbers show us the idea is a good one. Or at least it seems that way. The numbers show us, and we convince ourselves the idea is a good one. Somebody said in the chat just a minute ago, groupthink and cheerleading. We get out and we talk to people. Everyone knows by now, get out of the building. Don't just, do this in a conference room. You got to get out of the building and talk to who? Customers. Well, in the process of talking to people, either like our coworkers, our customers, something bad happens and we don't even know what's happening. We convince ourselves the idea is a good one. And today in Zoom, I'm sure you've been on Zoom meetings where we're talking about our ideas. And without realizing it, we're all convincing ourselves the idea is a good one. Someone mentioned in the chat before about groupthink. Bam, this happens, and we don't even know we're doing it. And once we've convinced ourselves the idea is a good one, what do? We build the product. So just to recap, this is the flawed three-step process. Step 1, we get an idea. Step 2, we convince ourselves the idea is a good one. And step 3, we build the product. And where does this go most badly? Is in, well, once you start step 1 and start down this path, maybe bad things happen consistently. But it's in step number 2 that we're convincing ourselves the idea is a good one. We don't even know what's happening due to a variety of reasons, mostly cognitive biases. We'll talk about that in a moment. And that's where things get really off track. And why is this a problem? When I said bad things happen, and I've had bad things happen. Pretty much everyone I know has followed this. Bad things happen. Well, the reason for this is when you follow this flawed three-step process, you're creating unbounded risk of building a product that people don't buy and use. When you follow this flawed three-step process, you're creating unbounded risk of building a product that people don't buy and use. And I'm here to say, risk is okay in business. You can't remove risk. I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, you'll never do anything. Risk is okay in business, but unbounded risk is not okay. That's inspired by Merrick First at Georgia Tech, who is the director of the Flashpoint Startup Accelerator at Georgia Tech. One of my startups went through that. Some of the material from this is inspired by Merrick. Super smart guy. So I'll give credit where credit is due with Merrick on that. And your mission, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a product manager, and you're doing anything new that doesn't yet exist, your mission early stage is to begin to bound otherwise unbounded risks. And the most important risk for you to bound first, focus on this first, write this one down, is the risk of building a product that people don't buy and use. When you start with the idea, we just take it, I mean, well, we'll get back to this. Most important risk, focus on first, risk of building a product people don't buy and use. Are there other risks? Of course there are. I mean, we're not going to cover these today. I'll just put them up on the slide fast. And I'm not saying don't focus on them. I'm saying which one focus on first? The risk of building a what? Go ahead and write it down in your notes. Risk of being fill in the blank in the yellow. Risk of building a product that people don't, write it down now, buy and use. And why do we do that? I know if you engage your mind and you write it down, you're more likely to remember it. If you remember it, you're more likely to do something around this. If you don't know it, you don't remember it, you won't do it. You don't do it, you won't get the results. So write these down and engage your brain and remember. Use your supercomputer in your head on this. So here's a better three-step process. And there is a better three-step process. It's, you ready for this? And by the way, I didn't get any of this from a book. None of this is academic. I've taught this at a collegiate level. This is all hard-earned learning through success, through failure, a lot of pain. And you can avoid some of that hard-earned learning just by getting this easy learning now. So the better three-step process is start with this. Start with, instead of an idea, start with defining who are your intended customers. Who are your intended customers? And here's a hack, shortcut to success on this. The first thing is intended customers are people, not institutions. So if I say, who are your intended customers? A lot of people I work with on this will say, oh, my intended customers are hospitals. Well, hospitals don't buy anything. Hospitals don't buy anything, but there are people whose roles within a hospital is to buy something. So first, think of your customers as people, not institutions. Here's a hack. Define your intended customers as narrowly as possible, and then slice again. So sometimes, who are your customers? People come back, everybody. Oh, that's great. But define it as narrowly as possible. This isn't for go to market. This is for a key learning phase. And if we want to learn about our customers, defining this as narrowly as possible early on will accelerate learning. It doesn't mean you have to go to market with this narrow focus, but it's going to accelerate learning. And then once you think you've done it as narrowly as possible, slice it again. And it's proven to me when we actually have time to do an exercise around this, it takes slicing this about 3 or 4 times before it actually is narrow, because we're not accustomed to it. So even if you think it's narrow, slice it and slice it again. So right now, think for a moment. Who are your intended customers? If you have something that you're thinking about doing, who would be intended customers you'd like to serve? And go ahead and write that down. Write it down now. The payoff is in thinking and writing it down. So time check, we're at 10:15. So who are your intended customers? Write it down now. And then whatever it is, go ahead and slice it. Make sure it's a person and not an institution. And then narrow it and narrow it again. And if you want to take a moment and go ahead and throw it into the chat. Jerry says he loved the sound effect, the ching sound effect. Glad to hear that, Jerry. Okay, go ahead, write down who are your intended customers and throw it into the chat for a moment, please. I'll read out a couple. You know, when I do these in person, we have more special effects. I limit the special effects on Zoom. Instead, you get like David Eckoff talking the whole time. I should probably do more special effects. Okay, go ahead and right now in chat, put down who are your intended customers. Okay, Bill says product managers at small to mid-sized companies. Bill, how could you make that even more narrow for learning? Geographically, where are they? Is it global? Is it US? Specific country? Specific region? Small to mid-sized companies, specific. Oh, Colorado. Bill says Colorado. So you see how we made it more narrow. Okay, in Colorado, particular kind of industry. Okay, wow, they're coming so fast, can't read them right now. But you get a sense of this. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and move forward in the presentation. But I want to say this. If you wrote it down and you thought about it, you did the exercise, I want to congratulate you because you're one of the few who does versus the few who like just shows up at a conference, sits back and multitask. You're gonna get way more out of this. So next, step 2, define a theory about your intended customers that you want to test. Notice what I underline, define a theory. A theory about what? A theory about your product? About your idea? No, a theory about who? A theory about your intended customers that you want to test. You know, a lot of times the assumptions that we have about our customers, we start taking it like fact. And we know they're assumptions, but we just start taking them as the truth. Start to think like a scientist. Think like a scientist. We're following the scientific method. Define a theory about your intended customers you want to test. Here are a few hacks. Oh, well, before the hacks, I mean, here's something. Francis Crick, since I mentioned think like a scientist, he said this, it's amateurs who have one big, bright, beautiful idea that they can never abandon. But professionals know they have to produce theory after theory before they're likely to hit the jackpot. So here's a hack. Ask yourself this, and please write this down. This is gold. You'll use this. I mean, I'm using this in my job. The people I teach this to come back and say, Eckoff, this is one thing I use, and it pays off. Ask this. What's something you believe to be true about your customers that might not be true? You're pretty sure it's true, but it might not be true. And so you want to find out. And if it turned out that it wasn't true, it would be a business killer or a product killer. And it's so important, I'll say it again. What's something you believe to be true about your customers? And write it down. It's probably true. You're pretty sure it is, but it might not be, so you want to find out. It's as simple as asking that question. And then here's a hack. Write down your theory in the form of a statement, not as a question that you're trying to answer. Write it down as if it's fact. Write it in the form of a statement. So right now, think what's something you believe to be true about your customers that might not be true? Cha-ching, and write it down now. If you want the cha-ching, if you want some take-home pay, write it down now. What's something you believe to be true about your customers? You want to find out. I just led one of my teams in this exercise, and wow, this created a lot of clarity. And there's something magical that happens in the process of writing it down. I had a writing professor in college who said, the quality of your writing is dependent on the clarity of your thinking. And I want to say the quality of the decisions you make in business is very much in the actions you take, and the actions you take, not just with you, but with your teams, is very much dependent on the clarity of thinking that you have. You can get to clarity of thinking faster by writing down. So step 3 is quickly and inexpensively as possible, test your theory. And notice the words I underlined, quickly and inexpensively. I've worked at a couple of big companies in the past where we, as slowly and expensively as possible, tested our theories. It doesn't have to be like that. Always aim for quickly and inexpensively. This phase is learning. If you can get the learning quickly and inexpensively, do it. Do everything you can. There's something that seems to happen naturally, that things tend to go towards complex, taking a lot of time, expensive, on their own. And it requires you as a leader, it requires us as leaders to aim towards simplicity, quickly, inexpensively in the learning phase. So here's something. In the process of testing your theory, remember I mentioned a funny thing happens and we start convincing ourselves the idea is a good one and that we're right. The first principle in this is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool yourself. Here's a hack. Here's the antidote to this. Rather than try to prove your theories right, try to prove your theories wrong. Work actively to prove your theory wrong. Why? Because there's something called confirmation bias. We can't get, it's one of the cognitive biases. We can't get into this in great detail today, but a cognitive bias will mess you up badly in this. The antidote, you just can't not have cognitive bias. It's hardwired into our brains. But the antidote, try to prove your theories wrong. And hey, the co-founder of Instagram, Kevin Systrom, said, I think a big part of knowing that you're right is working as hard as you can to prove that you're wrong. And if you can't prove you're wrong, well, there's only one option left, which is you're probably right. Think about that for a second. As you work to prove you're wrong. Most of us don't do this naturally. I think because we like being right. I like being right. I'll do anything to be right. But it turns out I know most of the time I'm not. So work to prove your theory is wrong. Here's a hack. What's some experiments you could do? Conduct field interviews with at least 20 customers a week. 100's better. I was on the, I won't say which company this was. I had a very senior role in the company on a board, and they had developed some unbelievable technology with machine learning and pattern recognition. And they had the idea to apply that commercially for optometrists. And they hired a salesperson, and they came back and presented the board, and they said, we haven't sold anything. We need to fire the salesperson and get a better salesperson. And I said, well, that might be the issue, but could it be that you built a product for optometrists that optometrists don't really want to buy and use? And they said, that's impossible. Like, this technology is incredible. Have you ever had this conversation, or know a friend who has, or worked someplace where most of us can probably relate to this? And I asked, how many of you are optometrists? And they said, well, of course, none of us are. And I said, how many optometrists have you talked with? I said, none. Our technology is amazing. Of course they'd want it. You could just see the flaw in this immediately. But when you're the one doing it and you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see. It's so easy to fool ourselves and to get down this path without realizing it. But I gave them this assignment and go out and talk with at least 20 optometrists this week, following a specific playbook that I gave them. And the funny thing is, the person in charge of product development said, talk to 20 optometrists? I don't have time for that. Think about that. Don't have time to talk to 20 optometrists, but had time to spend like a year and a lot of money to develop a product. You want to do this upfront before you build the product. And here's a hack. You can limit your field interview to just 10 minutes following this playbook that I've got. It's just 10 minutes. And how to get field interviews? Here's a hack. Use your network. Use LinkedIn. And first of all, here's my LinkedIn, David Eckoff. And I've got to say, if you're not already connecting with me on LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn invite today. It's not that you're welcome to tap into my network for your field interviews and to connect professionally, and let me know how things are going too. But use your network to do field interviews. And then here's a hack. When you do your field interview, have two people do it. One person will conduct the field interview, and will ask the questions. The other person will very carefully watch, listen, observe, and take notes. You think you can do both, just like people think they can multitask in pretty much everything. I mean, people think they can text and drive at the same time, which of course is illegal and unsafe, and don't do it. And what happens if you text and drive at the same time? You're going to crash. If you do field interviews under the delusion that you can multitask, you're going to crash too. This is one where it actually does take two to make everything go all right. And it does take two to make everything out of sight. Those who know the song, there you go. I salute you. So anyway, here's a hack. End every field interview with this question. Who else should we speak with? Who? Remember the owl. Who else should we speak with? You can keep the momentum going of getting more field interviews by asking that question. And if you just did a 10-minute field interview, you weren't pitching them, trying to sell them something, you're probably going to get more field interviews. I can tell you this has always worked for me. And that way you don't dead end. You keep the momentum going with more field interviews. A hack, debrief with your team is as soon as possible. Don't wait to debrief with the team about what you think you learned. I mean, it's proven, like if someone witnesses a car accident and then you ask them a week later what they saw, I mean, they've lost a lot of the memory of what they saw. Their memories actually become inaccurate and even false. Same thing with the field interviews. If you want to discover the truth about your customers, debrief with your team ASAP. So let's recap the better three-step process. Step one, define who are your intended customers. And please write this down. Step two, define a theory about your intended customers that you want to test. Step three, as quickly and inexpensively as possible, test your theory. And you want to keep doing this again and again. As you prove your theory is wrong, come up with another theory. Keep trying to prove your theory is wrong. You will be proving your theory is wrong. Lather, rinse, repeat. And here's the powerful thing that happens in the process of doing this. As you prove your theory is wrong, you will begin to discover the truth about your customers. That's so important. I'm going to say it again. And I ask you to write it down so you remember this. In the process of proving your theory is wrong, repeatedly, you will be on the path towards discovering something that is the truth about your customers. It's something about this process. As you do this, you will begin to discover the truth about your customers, some unexpected truths, some things you might not have known. Right now, just stretch for a second, and then be seated in a peak state. And we're going to bring it in like 3 minutes. So we have time for Q&A. This will be the fastest we've ever done this. I know it's not a speed writing class, but we're going to go fly through this. So what's going to mess you up? I got bad news for you. The three-step process is incredibly easy to understand, know, and remember. It's even kind of easy to do, but it's really hard to do well. And chances are you're going to mess up some stuff. Actually, you can mess up a lot of stuff, because I did. Everyone who does this does. And all you have to do is have one mess up with this, and you get false positives, and you're done. So I want to cover as quickly as possible a couple of things that will mess you up, so they don't mess you up. There are two things that are going to mess you up. Two categories. First is tactical mistakes, and second are cognitive biases. Today I'm going to cover very rapidly 3 tactical mistakes. Don't do these. I've got like another session we can do on cognitive biases. I also want to say, this is just session 1 of a 3-step that I have, 3-part sessions that I have. This is foundation. If you want session 2 and you want session 3, I don't sell it. This is not, if you want it, hit me on LinkedIn, email me. And if there's enough demand for it, I'll just do the session for free. We'll just do it on Zoom. And if you want sessions 2 and 3, I recommend it. Session 1 isn't, it can get you started, but it's not enough to be successful. I just do this to give back to the product community. Product Camp, this is I've got like, I don't know, 9 awards from Product Camp Atlanta, 2 from Product Camp Austin for best session, best speaker. I love the Product Camp community. So if I can, and don't send in chat, I won't be able to connect on that. Email or LinkedIn if you want sessions 2 and 3. And they're free. I mean, I'll just do it to give back. So, practice makes perfect, right? No, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. We want to be doing these things right. And so what will mess you up? These are the 3 tactical mistakes that smart people make. I don't have time to cover the ones that the not smart people make. The smart people make these ones. The first, I did this. I was like, I need to do field interviews. I need to learn about this stuff. I'll be smart. I'll just send a survey to like 100 people I know. Don't do this. Surveys can be great tools for learning about a product that already exists. But if you got a product or a business that doesn't yet exist, and you're trying to figure out if there's authentic demand around that product, the survey is not going to tell you what you need to learn. It's a fast path towards failure. It's a fast path to getting unreliable signals. It's a fast path to thinking you've learned something about your customers, but getting a lot of unreliable signals back.
Hi, David.
What's that?
Sorry to interrupt. There's about a little less than 4 minutes left.
Okay, got it. So thank you. Here's the thing. Please don't go back and say David Eckoff said don't do surveys, never do surveys. David Eckoff hasn't said that. I'm saying if you've got a product that doesn't yet exist or a business that doesn't exist, don't use surveys as a way to try to do this customer discovery method. Let's see. Number 2, tactical mistake number 2, getting feedback from friends, family, or coworkers or people you know. I did this. When I worked at IBM, I had the idea to do a sports magazine covering University of North Carolina basketball and football, just as a fun side business. And I asked friends, family, like classmates, people I knew, hey, what do you think about my idea? What do you think they all said? It's a great idea. Go do it. I asked my mom, what do you think about this idea I have? Well, you don't know my mom, but I mean, most moms will say, it's a great idea, David, go do it. I love you. Don't ask for feedback from people who know you. Why not? Because their job isn't to tell you the truth. Their job is to be supportive. Your job is to discover the truth. So just don't do this. There's more to this, but we don't have time today. But we can cover this in more detail later. But this is one, don't do this. I used to run competitively. I had stress fracture in my foot. And I said to my coach, when I do this with my foot, it hurts. He said, then don't do that. If you do step number 2, you will experience pain worse than the stress fracture I had. So I say, don't do that. Okay, here's a 3rd tactical mistake, asking people what they think about the product or what they'd want about the product. You're in the field interview, it just comes natural. Hey, I've got this idea for a product. What do you think about it? You tell them about the product. Don't do this. Whatever you hear back isn't going to be that reliable for a variety of reasons. I'd say don't do it. They'll tell you what they think. You'll get signals back, but it's not a reliable signal. And always be parsing for this. Write this down. Is what you're hearing back a reliable signal or not a reliable signal? If we do a session 3 together, just pro bono, then we have a whole a game called reliable, not reliable. It brings us into sharp focus. So ask a better question and get a better what? Ask a better question and you get a better answer. Think of that before you do the field interviews that you do. Think about asking better questions that get more reliable signals back. If we get reliable signals back, we're more likely to make what? Better decisions. Right now, as we bring this home in the next minute or 2, I want you to think right now, what did you learn in the session? What's one thing you learned now, maybe an aha moment that you had, a key distinction you made, something you hadn't considered. Maybe you thought about it, but you got a great reminder of something to do something. And how, if you do it, what's something you will actually do? Because it's not enough to know, you got to do. What's something you will do as a result and how will it benefit you? Write it down now. And we're not going to go through and do what we typically do of tell a partner. So if you want the most of this, you want to go ahead and do this now. Take 1 minute. I know it says 2 minutes.
We're going to have to cut out the session in 30 seconds. I'm so sorry, David.
Right.
I'm going to post some links where people can connect on either one.
Here, I'm going to close out by saying your assignment is to go do a bunch of field interviews. And your most important next step is this. I want to congratulate you on taking your first step. This is the first step to discovering the truth about your customers. Change how you think. When you change how you think, you change what you do. When you change what you do, you change your results. Here's my contact information. I invite you to get in touch. If you want sessions 2 and 3, we'll do that pro bono together to give back to the product community. And tell me how you're doing with this, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you so much, David.
Thanks for everyone for attending.
If anybody wants to continue the conversation, you can go to the Slack channel, posted the link below, or to Wonder Me, and you can continue to network with David if he chooses to go through, or any of the other participants. Thank you again, guys. It's been great.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Have a great rest of your day.